So winter is dominant with Kapha dosha. The qualities of heavy, cold, slow, damp, dense start increasing. So in winter, the ailments that we can be prone to are Kapha type disorders such as congestion. It can be sinus congestion, lung congestion, sluggishness, lethargy, depression. And we need to avoid things that increase kapha, such as cold dairy products, cold anything, cold water, cold foods. Too much doing nothing. Lying around and being lazy is not good for kapha. So winter is a good season for a bit stronger exercise, actually. We have more stamina, and it's a safe time to do that. So in terms of foods, again, other things are, too many sweet foods, especially refined sweet foods. So, cakes and all those types of things, especially cold sweets. That is absolutely the worst. Ice cream, definitely not recommended. So these are some ideas. Bananas, too many nuts, also increase kapha. Bananas definitely in winter must be avoided. They're very heavy, sticky, cold. They have that quality of coldness. Even if they're not cold, they have an inherent coldness. So eating bananas in winter is inviting congestion, etc. So to counter this impact of kapha, we need lightness, warmth, more stimulation, more variety. So to get these qualities, to get warmth, again, warm foods, warm liquids. That lightness is, easy to digest foods, very important. And also lightness can come through exercise, so that brings lightness to the body. So making sure that you have, that good invigorating exercise. And that stimulation can also be through taste. So the pungent taste is very important in winter. Pungent means like spicy. So pepper, ginger, these types of herbs are very important in our cooking to emphasize a little bit more in winter. And variety is actually quite important because the darkness, there's more darkness in winter. The days are shorter, and that can actually bring a bit of dullness to the mind, a bit of heaviness. So there needs to be psychologically and physically challenging activities that bring variety and kind of stimulate you. So that's very, very important that you don't get kind of stuck in a boring routine. Routine is beneficial, but in winter we need to keep our energies moving up. So things that inspire and that keep you moving are important. And of course, they've found now that the pituitary and pineal glands, they need light and warmth to stay balanced. So depression is also related with low levels of serotonin. So when those glands get affected, then there's more chance for depression to sink in. And they found that in places where it's dark, a large portion of the year, there's much higher rates of depression. So that light and warmth, again, is going to alleviate that kapha type of depression in winter. And the sense organ that kapha governs, two sense organs, or the two senses, the sense of taste and the sense of smell. Sense organs being the mouth, the tongue, and the nose. So, invigorating smells, things like cinnamon and things that are stimulating, and invigorating tastes, those spices that I mentioned, those kitchen herbs, to uplift will be very helpful. The other thing that's very important for keeping this area free of congestion is using that same cold-pressed black sesame oil, warm, a few drops in each nostril. This is called nasya, and that is very effective for clearing out congestion. So you just tilt the head back, a few drops in each nostril, 3 deep breaths, massaging at the same time, and that is going to help to clear out the sinus cavities without excessively drying the area, which some, clearing remedies can do. So this is a very balanced way to clear out that area. and it helps to stabilize the pituitary and pineal glands as well. So it both benefits hormones, clears congestion. Very good in winter especially. So coming to spring, the beginning of spring is Kapha dominant, and the later part of spring is Pitta dominant. So we divide spring into two. And the reason the beginning part of spring is Kapha, there's still quite a bit of moisture and coolness. And what actually happens is as the heat starts to increase, any Kapha that has accumulated in winter, it starts melting. It's like snow in the mountains when the sun comes out. It begins to melt and flow down into the rivers. So people that get things like hay fever and all these issues in early spring, and they blame the pollens and they blame external influences, but the truth is that they laid the foundation for that problem due to kapha aggravating factors earlier in the year. So when people actually follow this schedule, then they don't suffer from these problems. So it's just those external influences are just a trigger for the toxins that you have created in yourself. Then in the later part of spring, as the heat builds, again, Pitta starts to increase. And summer is also governed by Pitta. So those hot, intense, sharp qualities starting to increase. So we need to, the ailments that one can be prone to, Pitta type ailments, such as irritability, aggression, hyperacidity, inflammations, ulcers. These are all heated. You can see that, right? There's fire in these types of ailments. So we need to avoid anything that will increase that fire. So in terms of food, so things like chili, really spicy food, fermented foods, things like vinegars and alcohol and all those types of things will definitely increase Pitta. Even fermented things like miso soup, soy sauce, those types of things will affect Pitta as well. Tomato sauce, nuts and nut butters are also heating, so these types of things must be avoided. Seafood is very Pitta aggravating as well, so especially in those seasons, important to avoid them. Shellfish especially, yep. And skin conditions, I just wanted to say, and ailments, that is very, very much a Pitta problem. So rashes, acne, etc. That is indicative of a Pitta imbalance, which first affects the digestion, then affects the liver, then affects the blood, then shows up on the skin. That's the way that it progresses. So to balance Pitta, we need more cooling, more grounding, more soothing. So when Pitta increases, it makes you want to push and be more intense and more driven. That's Pitta's impact on the psychology. So in summer and in these seasons, it's important to be in relaxing environments, be moderate and don't push too hard. And having, being in a natural environment, looking at the full moon, these types of things, being near cool water, that has a very, very calming influence on Pitta, so that's important. And having more cooling foods as well, but that doesn't mean cold. So certain foods have cooling qualities, but not cold out of the fridge, because even in Pitta season, that will put out the digestive fire and give rise to toxins. And the sense organ Pitta governs or rules over is the eyes and the sense of sight. So one really effective way, if the eyes are burning or there's redness in the eyes or tired eyes, Pitta is affected in the eyes, having pure cotton eye pads, and you soak them in pure rose water, and then you have a rest, which is good for Pitta as well to help calm them down. Have a rest with those eye pads on the eyes. That's very, very beneficial. So that's the seasons. Now, in terms of the stages of life, so Ayurveda divides every human life into 3 stages, and there's a dosha that rules over each of those stages. And so regardless of constitution, everyone will be influenced a little bit more by that dosha in that stage of their life. So from 0 to puberty, or around 14, that's considered the kapha stage. And the reason that is that kapha governs all the growth in the body. So the growth of tissues is governed by kapha. So in that time, the body is really focused on growing and developing. And there's more likelihood that kapha type problems can develop, like, runny noses and congestion, and all those types of kapha problems show up in little kids quite easily. So there's that dominance of kapha regardless of constitution. Again, if it's a kapha constitution child, they have to be especially careful. Then when we come from puberty through to middle age, that is governed by pitta dosha. And that is when there's more fire, more drive, more ambition. That fire element starts to increase in the body and mind. And there can be more tendency for problems like, skin problems. Classically, the child that hits puberty and gets a skin problem, that's showing that their pitta has gone out of balance during that transition. Now, in that stage of life, it's important, what I mentioned in the summer season, again, to have more moderation, not push too hard, because pitta, when it's really high, it makes you want to push. So a pitta type in the pitta stage of life is going to really have to watch that they don't push too hard, because there can be that tendency very strongly. Now, when we get to middle age, like around 50, 55, through to the time of death, Vata dosha is dominant in the body, regardless of body type. And this is a really important stage of life because everything changes. So Vata brings in more sensitivity, and the tissues get a bit more vulnerable. And at that time, people have to make a transition and bring in more nurturing activities, slow down their pace from the pitta stage of life, which in our society we often fail to do. And that gives rise to a lot of very deep ailments because people are fighting the Vata stage. But in Ayurveda, we actually really revere that stage because that's the time of life when someone has accumulated so much wisdom and they reach the Vata stage and they're ready to share it. And it's a very, very special time of life. So we just need to shift our focus and honor that Vata stage, and then it can be a enjoyable, smooth, healthy stage of life. It just has to be honored, and diet and lifestyle must be adjusted at that time.